These are pictures from a baseball game I went to recently. Hello, everybody. I'm doing a ramble. While I knit a little bit, although I think I'm going to take a break from knitting. I've been knitting all day. And it's like 9 at night now. And I've been knitting since the morning. I've just been knitting. I don't know, sometimes I get into the mood to knit and I kind of don't follow any patterns. And anyway, so I'm making some things. One sweater I was thinking of putting it up for sale, but now that I look at it, it's not really... I'm never satisfied with whatever I make. Whenever I've ever made something, like clothing, I'm never satisfied with it. I always think, oh, I should have done it better. So I started a sweater, which is, looks nice. That one I was following a pattern. I don't necessarily follow patterns exactly, but I kind of take the ideas. Or sometimes I just knit from scratch. It's not out of my head, because I've gotten pretty good at knitting, where I can sort of create a sweater, basics sweater or something, without really planning it ahead. I just start knitting. But and I did a knitting pattern for a scarf, just a very basic scarf with a cable up the middle. It's very easy. And I'm trying to decide whether to offer it for free on my website as a free download to attract more readers. I've got to do a blog post. See, I've just been procrastinating. I've got so many things that I need to do with my online persona, as far as my designer persona, not this other stuff. The ASMR and this channel is sort of, especially this channel. This channel is where I'm just me. This is the me channel. Because I did a ramble the other day. It was pretty long. And then I didn't even listen back. Like, I didn't listen to it after I did it. But then I kind of remembered the stuff I talked about, and I just said, oh, nobody wants to hear this stuff. And it's almost like once I've rambled, I've gotten it out of my system, whatever I was thinking. Although keeping a record of it is helpful as well, because then if I have it on the video, then I can go back and listen to it. It helps me sort of organize my thoughts when I ramble out loud, because like all that I'm rambling out loud is really stuff that's in my head. It's just coming out verbally, what I'm thinking. But like about 2 weeks ago, I did a ramble. I didn't upload it. I ended up deleting it. But oh my gosh, I started bawling so much. I was crying my eyes out, and I was just, I'm such a failure in life. And that's how I was feeling at that time. And, if you look at my life, there have been a lot of failures. There have also been some successes. I mean, I'm a normal person. Everyone has successes and failures in life. See, now I'm thinking realistically. Okay, I'm not, a huge success, and I'm not a huge failure either. I've got a job, a part-time job right now, but I have a real estate license, which I've done nothing with. I just renewed it. But now I've decided I'm going to, activate my real estate license and, hey, show a few houses. Maybe I'll get lucky and sell a house. And that, gosh, if you sell 1 or 2 houses a year, it depends what price range, of course, but you could live off the whole year, off just 2-3 sales of very expensive houses, which I doubt, especially just out of the gate. I don't think I'm going to be selling mansions. I'll probably get lucky if I sell a few ranch houses or something, and it's not even a buyer's market right now. It's a seller's market, so I'm not expecting, but it's an activity I think that I would enjoy. I'm often on the website, on the internet, on Zillow. There's Zillow.com, and I'm just browsing through houses. It's houses all over the United States, and looking and comparing and looking through the neighborhoods on Google Maps, and I really enjoy doing it. I could spend hours there just looking at houses and then the pictures of the inside. So I think it's something I would enjoy, even if I don't end up making a lot of money from it. I would just need to pay the monthly access to the multiple listings service that whatever the agency has. You can also register, I don't know if it's in other states, but in Florida you can register with an agency but not as a sales associate, sort of as a referral associate. So you don't get a full commission, but you'll get something for referring a client if they end up selling to the client. And you don't have access to the multiple listing service, and you don't have to do all the actual administrative work. You're basically just referring, but they're allowed to give you a commission only if you have a real estate license. That's the catch. So otherwise anybody could just refer someone. But I think I just want to go all in and just say I'm just going to do it, just try to show houses. Now I don't have a car, which also is another thing. If you're going to be showing houses, you sort of need to have a decent car. So it's something that's kind of, I'm mulling over in my head what I'm actually going to do, And, I mean, sure, to show one or two houses, I'm sure my father would loan me the car every now and then. But, as a job, you really need to have a car. That's the one thing. Or some kind of transportation. Yeah, a car. You can't take a client out on a motorcycle, to see a house. So. And what if he's taking his wife? The three of us driving around town on my moped, Because I wouldn't even get a motorcycle. I would probably be more of a moped type. Not a moped. What are those called? They're these little scooters. I forget what they're called, but they're really cute. I almost got one of those. Because I'm fine on public transportation, but sometimes I feel like just having a form of, quicker transportation that... But, anyway. So now if I buy a car, I can forget about even buying a house, because I would have to get a used car, first of all, because sure, I could get a car loan, which I'm not really in the mood to get into debt right now. I'm almost out of debt. I had a little bit on my credit card, and had some dental work I needed done, which that's my downfall. My dental, there's no coverage. I have to pay, and my dentist is kind of expensive, but I trust her very much, and I love the work that they've done, because my teeth need a lot of help. I'm like all crowns and fillings and from my candy problem, so. I've always been a person that when I have a job, I do it the very best. Even if I'm not paid well, I get a lot of pride in work. Then I don't end up staying in the jobs very long, because I'm like suddenly, I want to do something else. That's how I've been all my life. And it has not been to my benefit. I would definitely not suggest that to someone. I mean, in my case, okay, at least I don't have kids, So all the crap I brought onto my life, I brought onto myself alone. I'm not... Perhaps if I would have had a child or two, I wouldn't be just quitting jobs whenever I got bored or whatever. So, but I've had some really difficult bosses. Right now, the bosses I have now are so nice. Oh, it's so wonderful going to the job I have now. It's only a part-time, and they don't have a full-time available any time in the near future. Let's say in the next 6 months, I don't. But I mean, if they did have a full-time job with benefits, which is what I'd really love to find, this would definitely be a place I'd like to stay. The bosses are really nice. The pay is pretty decent. It's some of the best as far as secretaries go. It's better than most of my... I'm still on an hourly, but I like it. The people are nice. The stress level's very low. I find the work quite easy. I'm very quick with the computer. And anyway, I don't want to be boring you with this talk about my secretarial work, but it's definitely my salvation has been being able to do really, really well in secretarial positions. I've always been just very good at office work and corporate work, and but there is something kind of frustrating about working for a corporation too. Sometimes. So, I go back and forth. I love the stability of working for a big corporation. It's like you go in every day, you've got your hours, you've got your steady paycheck, even if it's not much, but you know the money's coming in. It's sort of very, you've got your sort of your freedom within limitations. You have you've got to stay in your job description, and you can kind of, the job I'm in now, I can kind of go outside the box a bit, but corporations have their rules and procedures, and this is how you address someone who is at a higher level than you, and etc. And I've learned all that. I mean, I'm almost 50. I've been working since I was in my early 20s, on and off as a secretary in many different corporations, temping mostly, but so I know the rules, in quotes. I know how to behave. I know how you have to, I learned all the customer service stuff, and so it's nice having that experience and having something very easy to get you out of a pinch. I've always been able to find temp work, and anyway, it's a handy skill, and I enjoy it. So when I have a decent boss. Oh my gosh, the boss I had last year, though, when I was working in that real estate place, we were managing the property. Oh my gosh. Lord, gosh, she was difficult. Oh my gosh. I think she was crazy. I really think she was nuts. And I, ended up leaving because I had to go get divorced in Argentina. So that was sort of I did have to leave, but I probably left earlier than I needed to because I just couldn't take it anymore. And the girl after me didn't last very long, from what I understand. So I don't know what happened there. That was over a year ago. Well, getting back to this is going to be a really long ramble, isn't it? So I started crying, but bawling, and then I even said, I'm going to have to I turned off the recorder because I said, I cannot be doing this. I can't upload this. I finally ended up just deciding, I didn't even want to listen to it afterwards because I was going to start crying all over again. But I do remember saying how I was such a failure, and I'm unsuccessful in love, I'm unsuccessful in a career, I'm, just going on and crying my eyes out. And I was not having a realistic perspective at that point. I mean, everything was just definitely, and I've never seriously, I'm going to say this before I say what I'm about to say. I've never seriously considered suicide ever. I mean, sure, maybe everybody at one time or another has thought, I wonder what would happen if I were not here, but I've never seriously considered actually going through with something that bad. But I think I could understand someone, and I'm not saying that they should do it, but I could understand how someone could get to the point, if in a moment where they're just really not thinking realistically, where like I was feeling 2 weeks ago, you might just make a rash decision in that moment. Next day everything's over and you're feeling better. Most often things get better after they've gotten that bad in your head. Or maybe not in your head, maybe in real life things have been gotten horrible. I mean, people have had worse problems than me, for sure. I mean, guilt is definitely an emotion that's not healthy. There are reasons to feel guilty if you've done something that you feel guilty about later. I mean, sure, guilt it's an indicator of how perhaps it's an indicator that, okay, well, I did this and I feel guilty, I shouldn't do it anymore. Because if you're feeling guilty, you have some moral basis, obviously, because people who don't feel guilty at all don't have any moral basis to control themselves by. My I don't like to talk about my ex negatively, but I think I don't know, or maybe he just didn't show. Maybe he was putting on a tough exterior, and maybe he did feel guilty, because some of the stuff he's done in his life, if I were him, I would feel guilty. But, whatever, he didn't appear to feel guilty about it. Maybe he did. But that's another thing. A survival tactic of people who do feel guilty about things is like, well, screw it. I did it. I'm not going to apologize for it. Being unapologetic is a survival technique against feeling guilty. Because if you start to feel so guilty, and you really, really beat yourself up, you could end up doing, something terrible to yourself. So the flips, guilt is an emotion that you have to be careful with. If you're feeling guilty about something, fine, you should maybe feel guilty, but you should also try to be more realistic, about it. My guilt comes from when I was younger, I had some pet. That's my main regret in my life. When I was younger, I had some pets. That I was young. Okay, see, here I am justifying, but I was young. I probably didn't take care of them as well as I should have, and maybe my parents ended up giving the pet away, and I didn't care. Maybe I was 13, 14 years old. My parents had gotten me a horse, actually. And, the beginning was all fun. Hey, I got this new horse, and, silly teenage thing. And then I didn't want the horse anymore because I had to feed it, and I had to take care of it, and I had to clean out his hooves, and I had to do all the, the tough stuff. And it was up in north, and it was cold in the winter, and I didn't feel like going out there. And so my parents ended up taking care of the poor horse, and they were, they had gotten it for me. I was the one who was supposed. They ended up, basically we gave it away to a riding academy, which isn't a bad thing. It was a place where they taught horseback riding, but the thing is, I always felt a little guilty because that horse had a bit of he'd been through some stuff. It was a rescue. It was a horse that had, I guess, not been fed for a while from a previous owner, and ended up in one of those horse rescue groups. They fattened him up and everything, but the horse had some behavioral problems, which in the beginning, when I first got the horse, I worked on the behavioral problems, and I was loving, and I went out there every day. It was summer, so I went out there every day, and I brushed him, and the horse used to feel very happy when I would come every day to see him. I would bring him an apple, and I would brush him. In the backyard, my parents had a big property, and it was we had a corral fenced in, and the horse would whinny. Like when I arrived, he would, be excited and come running to me from across where he was in the corral area. And we were like friends for a while, and then I started getting bored with him. And winter was coming, and I didn't feel like going out as much, and I really feel guilty about that. And then the horse did have a few behavioral problems, which, I had sort of smoothed out, and he was better. But, okay, so we ended up, whatever. I told you what happened. We ended up giving the horse to a riding place that rented out horses, or they gave horseback riding lessons, and it was a nice place. And I don't know what happened after that. We gave it to them. But I was concerned because I think my father had stopped by to see how the horse was doing just once. And the lady told him, oh, this horse got some, behavioral problems. And he apparently he'd bucked off one of the kids. They were doing, I don't know, horseback riding. And horses will sometimes go a little cuckoo and buck you off. and he had done it to me once or twice, and I just wasn't, more towards the end when I just felt guilty. I said, oh, I don't know what happened after that, but I'm thinking maybe the horse was bad, and who knows what happened. Maybe they end up selling him at an auction, and I don't know whatever happened to the horse. I mean, I really feel guilty now. All these years later, the horse is dead of old age by now. If he had a happy life, he's gone now. But it's kids. I was already old enough to know that it was wrong not to take care of him. I mean, I could see if I was 7, but I was already 13, 14 years old. I knew, and my parents had always taught us, you take care of it. If you have a pet, you take care of it. Even if you don't feel like, the pet depends on you. Pet, or, a horse is a pet too. They were always teaching us responsibility. And that is sort of a way you teach if you have kids, getting them a pet is actually healthy because they learn responsibility. And the parents do end up taking care of the pet. It's true. I mean, kids will usually take care of it a little bit at first when they're excited about it, like with toys, and then they don't. So if you're a parent, be prepared for that. Don't think, oh, I'm going to get my kid a pet and it's going to all be wonderful. Most likely it's going to be all wonderful at first, and then you're going to be the one who ends up cleaning up the poop and walking him and taking him to the vet and, obviously paying for all the things. So, and children do learn, and if the child does stop taking care of the pet, you have to scold the child and make him feel a little bit guilty, because this is how they're going to end up, this is an attitude they're going to end up having with their own children. I mean, children learn how to raise children. Now, listen to me, I'm a single woman with no kids, and people are going to be thinking, oh, who's she? Who does she know? What does she know? But I raised some stepkids, and okay, I don't know what it's like to actually have my own biological children, but I just think, okay, it's my opinion. Children learn how to raise their own children by how their parents raised them and how their parents teach them to take care of their pets. So there's 2 things in there. First, the love and the care that they receive from their parents, from that side, and then the flip side, them taking care of something weaker than themselves, such as a dog or a cat, or, usually it's a dog or a cat. Even a fish, goldfish. Goldfish die very easily, though. I would probably not suggest a goldfish. These betas don't die as easily. I've had and betas are pretty easy to take care of, too. Those are those Siamese fighting fish. They don't die as easily as goldfish do. You still got to take care of them, of course. You got to change the water, but goldfish are just you got to be very careful with them. With the water, ammonia levels in the water, and I learned all this after losing like 50, I don't want to say 50 goldfish, but I've had at least 20 goldfish in my life, and they all died. I mean, the later ones were more fortunate than the earlier ones, because I'm just going to be laughing. It's terrible, but the later ones had the benefit of my having experienced some and reading some more, wondering why my previous fish had died. So, but goldfish need to be taken well care of too. You feel guilty when they pass on, and it's because I didn't take care of the ammonia levels in the water, because whatever. I even feel guilty about the goldfish. So yeah, maybe I'm going overboard here with the gold. But goldfish actually have high longevity. They can live 100 years. Okay, maybe not the small goldfish. They might live like 20 years, but they have very long lifespans. But in the hands of humans, they don't. In the hands of humans, goldfish are lucky if they last a few months. But I learned all this reading about goldfish when I had goldfish, and they kept dying on me. And then I kept going back and I would get those feeder goldfish that were like $1 or $2. because I was like, they keep dying on me. Because, like, I had gotten these really more expensive ones that were beautiful. And those lasted a while. Because by the time I got those expensive ones, I'd already had some experience with the feeder goldfish. And the feeder goldfish are the fish that are just plain little goldfish that they sell to people who have aquariums of carnivorous fish that eat other fish. And these poor little feeder goldfish, they throw them in the tank with these big fish that eat them. They're feeders. They feed the big like piranhas, for example. Some people have piranhas as pets, like a piranha or two. They might get feeder goldfish and throw them in there. Ugh, gosh. So these feeder goldfish don't last very long anyway. Not because they can't, but because they usually end up being somebody's dinner. So I would get like 10 of those for $1. I mean, and whatever. I named them. There was like when I was in my mid-20s, I'd got, I had a little apartment and I couldn't really have dogs. And so I kept getting these goldfish to have a little company. And I would get a little attached to them. I mean, then they'd end up all dying. And I wasn't completely distraught. But I mean, you feel kind of bad. So that's my opinion about pets. And yeah, the pets I left in Argentina, when I left my husband, I left them with him, and I have an arrangement with the veterinarian, but nobody took care of those animals like I did. They take care of them, they feed them, but and some of them have died since, but so that's something I'll have to live with the rest of my life. The guilt of I abandoned them. And you can't explain to an animal. Like the kids were already, the youngest was 16 when I left. And they weren't my kids, they were his kids. And you can explain to them, well, your father and I aren't getting along and it's probably just, whatever. And they weren't completely distraught either because I wasn't their mother. I think they missed me in the end. Even though I thought they hated me when I lived with them, we're still in touch through Facebook and stuff, and they apparently have some affection for me. And I'd like to see them do well in life, but I didn't miss them at all. So to be honest, I mean, knowing that they're fine, if I knew one of them was doing very poorly in life, I would feel bad. But they're not doing so great either. But it definitely wasn't a huge difficulty for me leaving the kids as it was leaving my husband. Even though I wanted the divorce, I was the one who left. It was difficult for me to leave and start over at a more, at an advanced age. And the company you have from a mate, from an intimate relationship, such as I had with him. I mean, we were basically roommates. We had been living as roommates for like a year, but there was affection there in spite of all the stuff that we'd been through and the disappointment that I felt. Maybe disappointment really comes from expecting too much from the other person, which I realize in hindsight I did expect too much. I expected him to change after we got married, which is the number one mistake that women make. Oh, yeah, that's a problem. He'll change once we're married. I'll straighten that out. And that's, when someone is the way they are, that's the way they're going to be after marriage too. And I maybe subconsciously knew that. So, but whatever. Love kind of makes you not see things, or love or passion or whatever I felt. But it was difficult, and I still miss him because not him. I miss the companionship. I do miss him because there were some, some nice things, that we're friends on Facebook too. Sometimes we'll make jokes, we'll email each other. Occasionally, I mean, not too often. I actually find it annoying when he writes to me at first, and then I kind of like, oh, whatever, I'll write back. But, whatever. It is what it is. He's had a few girlfriends since we left, since I left. I think he's dating another one now. He had one for about 3 years after I left. Like a year after I left, he got together with a lady, and they were together for, actually, it must have been less than 3 years. It's 2015, yes, so they must have been together like 3 years. But she ended up, or they ended up breaking up. I actually don't know what happened, but I'm sure it was because of some of the reasons that I left him. His excessive spending, and he probably borrowed money from her, which he likely never returned. I mean, I know him. It most likely had something to do with him using her for her money. What little she had, the same in my case. It's not like I had a lot, but what little I had, he got out of me, and that's the way he survives. And so the woman is always wondering, does he love me, or did he love that I was helping support his irresponsibility with money? So money is an issue. It is an issue. And then, which is why you can understand why people, it's not that they're being, I don't know what the word is, but sometimes people will choose to only get together romantically with people who are at the same level of them economically. And I understand why more now than I used to, because you want to be sure that the person's with you because they want you, not because of, and money is a big factor. You need money to survive. So if somebody's at the same, if you're both poor, for example, you both struggle together to get out of the hole, ideally. Sometimes it'll be the one that's very ambitious and struggling, and the other one's along for the ride. So that's the other problem when you're both poor. When one is well off and the other isn't, there's the one you're wondering, well, does that person really want to be with me, or is it because of, particularly a person that doesn't have ambitions, because if you're a struggling student and you get together with someone who already has a job and has her own apartment, for example, or vice versa, if the man is the one that's well off and the woman is studying, but you see that the person that you're with has ambitions, even if they're poor at the moment, they're broke basically because they're students or whatever. That could work, because that the person is temporarily that way, but you see that they're trying, to get out of that. And sure, you're helping them out as they. But what sometimes happens in that case, once that person does achieve your level where they can support themselves, they leave. So there is still a concern in that respect also. They might be with you temporarily because you're helping them out as they're reaching their goals. So that's something to be concerned about. But when you have two people that are decent, have a decent lifestyle, they've worked, they've saved, they've been responsible, that's the kind of person that I think usually works out the best, because the money issue is off the table. You don't have to worry about the money issue, because money has a lot to do with relationships. People, especially when you're younger, you think, oh, money's not important. We'll live on love and all these beautiful, very noble ideas on love. And unfortunately, money has a lot to do with the dynamics of a relationship. And it's important that, I think, for a relationship to work, that both parties in the relationship be independent, so that they don't need the other person, or they've both invested the same amount. They both have the same amount to lose. For example, if you buy a house together, you've both invested in that one house. So you both have equal losses if something happens. In my husband's case, I bought the house. So, he didn't really have a lot invested in the house. So anything he got out of the house, hey, great. Which he ended up getting half the house when I left. Because the laws in Argentina, they're different than they are here. You're not allowed to do prenups and all that stuff. Anyway, we bought it when we were already married. And so, that's like a windfall for him. Hey, and he did help out a bit, he did pay the bills and all that, but he was living there. So Anyway, I don't want to go back to that in my mind right now. Whereas if we had both, if he wouldn't have been so poor, he was a taxi driver with 4 kids, and a mother who's the mother of the children is schizophrenic and unable to really do anything. So I went in like, oh, I'm the savior and he will love me and appreciate me for all I've done. No, he did not appreciate necessarily all that I did. And I was wrong to expect him to. See, that's the other thing. When you do something, you shouldn't expect gratitude in return. If you get it, that's wonderful. And I was not expecting anything from the children. I was expecting it from my husband. And no, he really didn't have much gratitude. If anything, like I said, he survives in life on his good looks and his charm, and at least at first. He's not very charming after a few years. Okay, great. I'm glad I got into this because now I remember why I left. So, my second thoughts about, if I should have left. Okay, good. We've established that I did the right thing. Oh, good, because I'm starting to get angry now. So, I think I've rambled on enough, and I didn't even talk about what I was planning to talk about. So maybe I'll do another video.